Factsverse presents Children Who Were Lost for Years, Then Found. Number 1. Gregory Jean Jr. Gregory Jean Jr. lived with his father and his stepmother. When he was 9 years old, they pulled him out of school, telling his teacher that he was going to be homeschooled instead. For the next 4 years, his father and stepmother held him captive in their home. His mother was a Haitian immigrant and didn't know much about the system or how to report someone missing. She contacted Child Protective Services, but she never called the police. Since a police report was never filed, no one knew the boy was missing. After 4 years in captivity, Gregory was able to rig up a cell phone so he could send his mother a friend request on Facebook. When the police arrived at the home, there was no sign of Gregory. He sent his mother directions to his location, and when the police visited the home a second time, they found him hidden behind a false wall. He's lucky that his mother never gave up on him. Number 2. Amina Ali Darsha Nakeki. A few years ago, the Boko Haram stormed into an all-girls school and kidnapped hundreds of girls. One of these girls was Amina Ali Darsha Nakeki. The kidnapping made headlines all around the world. When time went on, the girls were not found, and police around the globe became angry. 2 years after the girls had been missing, a local vigilante group decided to do something about it. When they thought they had an idea of where some of the girls were, they brought Amina's mother and went to the door. As soon as the door opened and her mother saw her face, she hugged the group's leader. It took her 2 years to see her daughter again, and she was so happy to have her back. Number 3. Stephen Stainer. Stephen Stainer was kidnapped by a known pedophile when he was 7 years old. After he was in captivity for 8 years, his captor abducted a younger boy. This is what Stephen needed to attempt to escape. The two boys hitchhiked for over 40 miles before they found a police officer who helps to reunite boys with their families. Sadly, Stephen only had 9 more years with his family. When he was 24 years old, he died in a motorcycle accident. Number 4. J.C. Dugard. When J.C. Dugard was just 11 years old, she was walking her bike down the road when a car pulled up on the side of her. Philip and Nancy Garrido got out of the car and shocked her with a stun gun. For the next 18 years, they held her hostage in their backyard. She was living in a shed and under tarps the entire time. When she was finally rescued, the police were shocked at how close to home she was the whole time. Both Philip and Nancy were arrested, and they will never get out of prison. Today, JC is using her story to help inspire others. She's even written 2 books about her ordeal and her journey to living a normal life again. Number 5. Tanya Kak. When Tanya Kak was 13 years old, she didn't have an easy life. She lived with her father and his girlfriend, and it wasn't the greatest situation for a young girl. There was a 37-year-old security guard at school who Tanya became friendly with. When she told him about her home life, he encouraged her to run away from home. When she finally agreed, she wished she hadn't. The security guard held her captive in his room at his parents' house for 10 years. Eventually, he started trusting Tanya more and letting her go out. While she was supposed to be running an errand, she told a shopkeeper who she was and that she was kidnapped and needed help from the police. Finally, she was reunited with her family. Number 6. Sean Hornbeck. Sean Hornbeck's story is unlike many other kids' stories. He was riding his bike down a gravel road near his home in Missouri. Rather than keeping Sean locked away and hidden, he used fear and abuse to control him while letting him out in public the entire time. Sean was held captive for 4 years. When his captor brought home another boy, Sean knew he had to get away. 4 days after the new boy arrived, they were found and rescued. Number 7. Carlina White. When Carlina White was just 19 days old, she was kidnapped from a Harlem hospital by a nurse. Carlina grew up thinking this woman was her mother and that her name was actually Nettie Nance. She never learned the truth about her abduction when she was 23. When she was online looking at photos of missing children, she saw one that looked so much like her that it could be her daughter. In reality, the photo was her. her baby picture. When the truth came out about who she really was, a DNA test proved that the woman she thought was her mother all her life had kidnapped her. Just a few years ago, a Lifetime movie was made about this ordeal. According to Carlina, it's difficult to look at the woman who raised her as a criminal. Regardless of how Carlina felt, her abductor was arrested and convicted of kidnapping. Number 8. Steve Carter. When Steve Carter saw the story of Carlina White all over the news, he became curious. He'd always thought that something in his life was off. After hearing Carlina's story, he went on a website for missing children and he saw a photo of himself. It turned out that his mother kidnapped him when he was very young, and she changed his name. It was originally Marks Panama Barnes, but to keep him hidden from the world, she had to change his name. When he found out the truth about who he was, he also found out that his father had been searching for him for 30 years. At the same time he was reuniting with his father, his mother was being arrested for kidnapping. Number 9. Natasha Ryan. Natasha disappeared from her home in Australia when she was just 14 years old. 4 years later, she reappeared. A man was on trial for her murder. After the police received a tip, it led them to the home of her boyfriend where she was living. The man was 8 years older than Natasha. They were married and they had a son together. The only reason that Natasha willingly came out of hiding was to keep an innocent man from going to jail. Number 10. Julian Hernandez. Julian Hernandez was kidnapped by his father when his parents were going through a nasty divorce and a custody fight. He was only 5 years old when he was kidnapped, therefore during his entire childhood he had no idea he had been abducted. When he was 18 years old, he was applying for college. It was then that he realized the Social Security number that his father gave him was a fake. He later found out that his mother had been searching for him for 13 years. Number 11. Chow Yun. This is one story where the child in question was not taken from home against her will. The girl actually chose to leave home. Chow Yun is a Chinese girl who was only 14 years old. She got into a fight with her parents and she ran away from home. For the next 10 years, she was living and playing games in internet cafes all over the country. When she was 24 years old, she was discovered by someone who had seen her photo on a website for missing children. Her story is so unbelievable because for 10 years she lived on her own and nobody knew the truth. Number 12. Connie McAllister. When Connie McAllister was 16 years old, she was living in Wisconsin and she was dating a boy named Freddie Ruiz. He talked her into sneaking out of the house and meeting him in Chicago. When she got there, Freddie drugged her and drove her to Mexico. For the next 9 years, she was trapped in Mexico with Freddie and had to endure his abuse. When she met another man, she thought that things would get better. Unfortunately, things with him were not any better. When Connie was working at Walmart, she met an American missionary and Connie told her what had happened to her. This missionary helped her find her way home, and today she is home and happily married. Number 13. The Girls from Cleveland. Of all the children who were lost for years and found, this case is one of the most highly publicized. Between 2003 and 2013, a man named Ariel Castro kidnapped Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus by tricking each girl to get into his car. He held them hostage in his home. He beat and raped the girls regularly. During this time, he got Amanda pregnant and she gave birth to a daughter. One day, Castro was going for a ride with his brothers and forgot to lock the doors. It was Amanda's chance to escape. She couldn't get the door open completely, and a Good Samaritan came along and helped her and her daughter to squeeze out the door. She went to a neighbor's house, hysterical, begging to use the phone. When the police came, they found Amanda and her daughter, who then told her about Michelle and Gina in the house next door. Castro pled guilty to a whole slew of charges. Soon after his incarceration, he took his own life. Today, the girls are trying to rebuild their own lives. Subscribe for more.